Well, we are so glad that you've decided to be a part of the Starting Point group, and we are believing that this time that we have together is really going to impact your life, and that there's a lot that God wants to do in you through this. Now, I want to share with you for a few moments our story at South Bay Church and how we got going. The story really begins back when I was in high school, and my life had been changed by Jesus. I had this new joy and peace that I'd never experienced before. And during that whole time, my parents had gone through a divorce, and there had been an emptiness inside of me previously that was now filled. Now, as a result of my life being different, I wanted to share this message of Jesus with all of my friends. And so I started thinking about all my friends that I went to high school with and played football with. And then I started thinking about taking all of my friends to church with me. And I realized that if I took them to church with me, they would be more turned off to the message of Jesus than they were before. And at that point, I had an experience in high school where I said a prayer. And I said, God, if you'd ever use me to start a church to reach people like my friends, I want to do that. And little did I know that that one prayer would become the seed of the vision of South Bay Church. So I moved from high school to college knowing that eventually we would start a church. I would start a church for people who'd never experienced God's love before. I met my wife Stacy in college at Charleston Southern University, and she shared the same passion and heart. So we got married in 2003 and moved to Texas to go to grad school. While we were there, we started a church on a local university's campus, knowing that it would be a training ground for us as we hope to one day start a church in a major metropolitan area inside the United States. So if you fast forward a little bit into 2007, Stacy and I knew that we were going to be graduating from school pretty soon. And I was doing this long time of really kind of getting my heart focused on God. It was a season of fasting and prayer for both Stacy and I. And I started to sense that God was releasing us from that church we had started there. Graduation was coming from grad school, and it was time for us to pursue that vision He had put in my heart way back in high school. So we took out a big whiteboard, and we drew a map of the United States, and we marked off what we thought were the most influential cities in the country. We picked the top 10 cities. We had New York, D.C., Chicago, L.A., Boston, Miami, Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego. These cities that we felt like if they were impacted with the message of Jesus, it could literally change the world. So after we took that big map, we narrowed down to what we thought would be the cities where we would fit the most. And we started taking some trips to the West Coast. And on our first trip out to the Bay Area in 2007, we looked at a lot of different areas, a lot of different cities. And finally, towards the end of our trip here in May of that year, we went to a place called Rivermark. And Rivermark is this master plan community in Santa Clara. And we went to the Pete's Coffee Shop there and started walking around and realized that, man, here there are people that are like us, that they're starting their families or they're starting their careers, and they're dealing with so many of the challenges and stresses that we face in our lives. And there were people from all over the world, and as we sat there in that coffee shop, we could hear people speaking different Asian languages, to people from Europe, to literally all over the world. And we thought, hey, if this area could be impacted with the love of Jesus, it could influence all of the world. So that was the moment when we really believed that God was leading us to Silicon Valley to start a church primarily for people who've never experienced God's love before. And so we took the plunge. We said yes, and we responded to what it is that we believe God wanted us to do. And so for the next year, we spent time putting together a team. We invited Mandy and Felipe Santos to be a part of the team. We met with Archie and Rebecca Jackson, who are now a part of our staff as well, and invited them to be a part of South Bay. And our three families moved here in August of 2008, literally knowing nobody in this region, except we had 17 churches that were standing with us financially to pray and support the work. And from that point, we felt like we literally jumped onto a moving train. We came here, and it was very apparent that God was doing something way bigger than we could wrap our minds around. And we built a relationship with the city of Santa Clara and served at the Art and Wine Festival in August of 2008. And then in that September, met hundreds of people. And through that, we formed a small launch team of about 20 people that began meeting on Sunday nights. And we started planning and preparing for the launch of this church. And we started developing teams and casting vision and helping people understand what could happen if there was a church that really did focus on people who've never experienced God's love before. And that year, in November of 2009, we started having these monthly services in November, December, January. Finally, on February 8th of 2009, we had our grand opening as a church. We had 275 people show up for that service. About 50 of those people were from out of town, so that meant that 225 people from our community were there, and we were ready to launch this new church. And by our great leadership over the next 6 weeks, we watched the church grow from 225 down to about 125 people. And we were just looking at each other in staff meetings and trying to figure out what was going wrong. And then all of a sudden, about 7 or 8 weeks in, we started watching God do these incredible miracles, and lives started to be changed, and dozens of people started to show up every week. And that movement just continued forward. By the point we reached the fall of that year, we were busting at the seams in one service, and on our 1-year anniversary in 2010, we added a second service, and we have literally watched from that point God do immeasurably more than we could have ever asked or imagined. From that point to the people of South Bay stepping up to the plate to give generously so we could, from that point, the people of South Bay Church stepping up to give generously so that we could find and renovate a facility, which is now our North San Jose campus. Our story is literally full of people who've given of themselves with their time, their energy, their passion, because their lives have been impacted by Jesus. And as we come to this point in our history as a church, it's amazing, so many people come and they don't know the backstory and they don't know all these things that God has done. And it's important for us to mark and to recognize that our story at South Bay Church is one of miraculous provision from God. To go from where we are, knowing nobody, to now being a church that literally is reaching thousands of people every single month. It's because of God, and it's because of the people of South Bay who've given of themselves. And so we want you to know, as you're kind of getting involved and connected here, that this is a church with a rich history that goes back to 2009. And even though it may seem like a short period of time, it's important for us to build on that history, and for you to know that as you step in to this church, what we're all about. See, our church from the beginning has been all about leading people to say yes to Jesus and live, and for them to live passionately for Him. And everything we do is geared around that. We do something we call the Fantastic Four, which is our Sunday worship experience. We have our life groups that meet throughout the course of the week. We do our outreach into the community and in the world. And then finally, we have our family ministries. And those 4 things really are all that we do here as a church. We've tried to keep it very simple, and we've tried to go back over and over and over again to think of, if somebody who'd never been to church before or grew up in a different religion, if they came through the doors of our church, we want to make sure every single week the way that we communicate the message of Jesus, we don't want to water it down, we don't want to make it less than what it is, but we want to communicate it clearly so that it's tangible and accessible to everybody who's there. And for you, I want you to know that no matter where you are in your journey spiritually, you're welcome at this place. And at the same time, you need to know that this is a church that is urgent about its mission, that we're not going to let anything stand in the way of what it is that we believe God is asking us to do, and we're going to stay focused on that mission of reaching people who've never been reached and never been connected to with the message of Jesus. And so if you join and lock arms with us, that's the mission you're joining and locking arms with. We do our best to create an incredible kids experience and to do awesome with our youth and have great life groups and powerful worship experiences. But those are not for our comfort. Those are not for our ease. Those are to help us as a community impact people and connect them to relationship with God and to connect us with relationship with one another. And the greatest joy in your life and in my life is going to be found when we learn to give our lives away and realize that one life that God has given to you can be about something so much greater than just yourself. And that's the beauty of the church, is that we get to do that together and watch God change people's lives. So welcome to Starting Point Group. Welcome to South Bay Church. we're glad that you're part of this group, and we believe that this experience is going to impact you and help you go to a whole new level in your journey in pursuit of following Jesus, and we're excited to see what's going to happen as a result.
Thanks for joining us for week 1 of Starting Point. Be sure to come back next week as we share with you some tools and some insights on how you can grow in your spiritual journey.